Gene here, and welcome to At Home with Music. Let's talk about practicing. This may not be a terribly popular subject, but it's one that we've got to deal with. How should I practice piano? How long should I practice? You know, when I first started out taking piano lessons, I had just turned 12, maybe a few months shy of my 12th birthday, a little bit of a late starter, and I ended up really loving piano, and I wanted to practice all the time. I'd practice up to 4 hours a day. Now, that's not how it goes for every piano student, obviously. If you're a homeschool teacher and your child is taking piano lessons, they may not want to practice very much at all. And then you may have one that has a real passion for music and wants to keep practicing all the time. Well, how long should they practice? Well, I practiced 4 hours a day for many years. Even when I went to college, I continued to practice 2-3 hours a day in the midst of all the other activities that one does when one's a college student. One thing I didn't like about practicing when I was growing up was the fact that I had to practice in front of other people. I didn't like it at all. In fact, in one of the houses that we lived in, while I was still taking piano lessons, I have a beautiful grand piano, which unfortunately I have nowhere to store it in this house, so it's at a friend's house in Florida. The piano was in the living room, in the same room as the television. And I loved to practice so much that I would sneak over during the commercials when my family was watching TV and try to practice. I seem to have a clavinet sound there. There we go, that's the piano. So I'd sneak over there and I'd practice my scales and I'd play some pieces, and then the commercials would end, the program would come back on, and my family would shout, "Leon," they called me Leon in those days, "get off the piano." That was my new middle name. Leon, get off the piano. And to this day now, I really do not like anyone to hear me practice. I've been married for 41 years and my wife has never heard me practice. And in college, I used to love the practice rooms. They all had these little closet-sized rooms with a little upright piano in there, and you'd go in there, shut the door, and nobody could hear you unless they came and put their ear right on the door. And then later on, I got a key to our church because I was the church pianist, and I used to be able to walk to the church, shut myself in after everybody had gone home for the day, and practice the piano on the church piano. So I got my privacy, and I practiced for quite a few hours. But one of the things I found out was that more practice does not necessarily mean better results. In fact, the great classical pianist Arthur Rubinstein, somebody whose work you should listen to, one of the greatest pianists who ever lived, he told a group of college students, music students, he said, I don't think you should practice any more than 3 hours a day. That's the maximum. And that's for somebody who wanted to be a fully classically trained virtuoso pianist. Now, I practiced that many hours because that's what I thought I was going to be. But I branched out from classical music. I began to study how to play from chord charts, how to play in a band, how to play hymns in church, and how to accompany singers and choirs and stuff when the music wasn't all written out. Now, of course, like many piano students, I wanted to strengthen my fingers, make my technique better, and so I would do things like practice scales. What I found about playing finger exercises is you can overdo them. Now, there's some good finger exercise technique books out there. Probably the most famous is The Virtuoso Pianist by Hannon, where you're doing things like this. I call those finger wiggling exercises. They have some value, but if you spend all your time doing that, it really doesn't help you grow as a musician. And so what I've learned over the years is that more technique can be gained from practicing actual music. That's why when I teach people piano, I get them started playing songs that they want to play right from the beginning. And if you're a homeschool teacher, when you teach your children, you want them to play songs that they want to play. Not just playing little pieces and trying to read the music necessarily, although learning to read music is a good skill to know. However, if you want to learn to play octaves, you can find classical piano pieces where there's octaves in there. I don't play octaves all that well because I have rather small hands, unfortunately. If you want to play scales, then you should learn how to play Mozart. Mozart loves his scales. If you want to learn finger strength and independence, you can study the music of Bach. These are all good things to study if you're interested in being a classical pianist. Not everybody is. You still want to develop some finger strength and some technique, but you also want to learn music theory, and that will enable you to play popular songs, hymns, standards. You'll go beyond just reading sheet music. You won't be one of those piano players that if you take their sheet music away, they can't play. And that's a big part of what I teach when I teach people about keyboard and playing the piano. When I was a gigging musician, that means I was going out, I was playing shows, I was part of a society band in the 90s, I worked with a New Orleans jazz singer in the 2000s, all the way up until 2016. I practiced in order to learn songs. I practiced in order to learn to play different styles. I learned how to play jazz. I learned how to play New Orleans jazz. I learned how to play Boogie Woogie, stuff like that. You don't learn that when you're playing classical music. I learned how to play rock and roll. I learned how to play R&B. And that's what I was practicing at the time. Of course, there were some technical exercises in there, but I was also practicing the actual styles. I was listening to recordings of those various styles and then using my training, my ear training, being able to listen to it, try to imitate it, and eventually I learned how to at least create a facsimile of some of these different styles. I've been playing the piano for a long time, over 50 years. Nowadays, maybe I really don't practice as much. I've got a lot of muscle memory in there after many, many years, but I still need to get here and limber up my fingers and keep myself in shape. But it took me a long time to get to this point. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what do I need to do? How much do I need to practice? Well, here's some questions you need to ask yourself. First of all, what are your goals as a musician? What do you want your children to learn as a teacher? And there's two types of goals. There are what I would call recreational or fun goals. You're not necessarily learning in order to become a professional musician, but you might be learning to play, like say you're a grown adult, you're an adult beginner. So I want to learn to play enough so that I can play a duet with my kid who's taking piano lessons. You might be a homeschool teacher, and your child wants to learn just enough keyboard in order to play one of their favorite songs. Maybe there's a song from a Star Wars movie or a Disney film that they want to learn how to play. And the methods that I use will enable them to do that. And they won't have to be studying for 50 years like I have in order to be able to play those particular songs. And the more that they play them, the better they'll get. If you're an adult beginner, maybe playing the piano just seems like a nice way to relax and unwind, I tell you, there is nothing more therapeutic than making beautiful sounds yourself. I mean, it can be really therapeutic to listen to beautiful music, but to make beautiful music, that's also something that's really good for your brain. Now, getting back to someone who's a homeschool teacher, maybe your child really enjoys music and you want to keep him or her interested in it enough so that they might want to continue to take piano lessons or use my videos here at Home with Music to increase their musical knowledge. So those are recreational or fun goals. But of course, there are some who decide, well, I just want to pursue music more seriously, and those become achievement goals. And so you have a child maybe who really wants to pursue music, wants to major in music in college. They need to prepare for auditions, prepare for playing for their teachers, playing in recitals. And so you want to continue to, they may need to practice more than just somebody who has recreational goals. Maybe a goal that you have is, I want to learn how to play hymns. I want to learn how to play worship songs. I'd like to learn how to play as part of a group so that I can play in my church. Now, that's what I've been doing now for the past several years, is I get to get up on Sunday morning and to go play as part of the worship team. Maybe you're teaching your child music and you want to prepare them to study with a more advanced teacher who's been teaching piano professionally for many years. You can prepare them for that by using the Music Basics series and the From Ears to Fingers series. And then they'll have a little bit of a head start when they go to study with another teacher. And if they're really serious about their music, then that will help prepare them for playing at festivals, playing in competitions, and they can participate in recitals and have a wonderful time. Maybe you yourself want to study classical music and play classical pieces. Well, that is a worthy goal in and of itself. But as far as how much time to practice, well, you've got to consider, where am I at so far? Am I just getting started? Well, in that case, maybe you don't want to be practicing 40, 50 hour, an hour a day or whatever. Maybe just a few minutes every day is all you need. It doesn't take long to learn a beginning song. And so if your goal is to just learn one song, then you may not need to spend more than 10, 15 minutes mastering that one song in a very elementary way. And then later on you can dress it up a little bit. I'll show you how to do that in future videos. And of course, if you really enjoy practicing and playing, then you'll want to add more time. And then, of course, the question is, how much time do you have? What's your schedule like? You may end up practicing in the evenings after dinner. You may get up early in the morning and practice. If you're teaching your children music, they may want to start their day with music. They may want to end their day with music. Or maybe they want to practice on their lunch break. Everybody's different. Everybody has different preferences. And one other thing I want to mention is, there is patience involved. There is work involved in learning these things, but you got to be patient. Music is a long-term commitment. Even if you're just wanting to play recreationally and have fun with it, it still takes a little time to build up that competence. And so you've got to be patient. You've got to learn from making mistakes, not worry about the mistakes. They're not the end of the world. A lot of more things there's a lot more I can talk about with this particular subject, but you just want to be patient. I'm going to be coming back in a future video with more specific practice tips. You can see I'm sitting here in front of a keyboard and I've barely played anything. But what I want to do is show you some of the actual finger exercises that I've used over the years, and then show you how I learn how to play songs and so on. And let me tell you one thing. I don't really like the word practice. It carries with it this connotation of hard work, it's boring, it's drudgery. You're really not practicing, you're playing. There's a reason that we play music. We don't practice music, we play music. Yes, there's a certain amount of work involved, but there should also be some fun involved as well. You're learning a new skill. You're rewiring your brain in good and beneficial ways. We'll talk more about practicing the keyboard, practicing piano, and I'll give you some specific ways to do it that will help you make better use of the time that you spend practicing, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. It really doesn't matter. It's what you're comfortable with, what your goals are, and what you have time to do. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you, and we'll continue to talk about this more in future videos. I encourage you to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That helps the channel a lot. And you can support my work on Patreon. You can contact me through the website. You can leave a comment below, and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.